As a licensed psychotherapist, I'm here to assure you that the quality of your relationships and your success in communicating can't be separated from how you work with your thoughts. Do you sometimes have troubling thoughts, including worry and ruminating thoughts? Like out of nowhere, it seems to arrive and house itself in churn and churn and churn. Well, this is common, and if you allow it to continue, these troubling thoughts, worrying and ruminating thoughts, will simply make things worse and worse. Some of this is because you're entertaining them. You're really allowing these thoughts to create a kind of a downward spiral, and your emotions and mood lower. It even contracts your physiology. So there's a story that illustrates what we can do, and that story is of the pesky neighbor. So you live in a nice neighborhood, and neighbors are friendly, and people come over to each other's houses once in a while for coffee. And there's a neighbor that's been coming over to your house, and it's been going well enough, but this is just happening way too much. And you want it to be different. You don't want this neighbor around so much. You can't get things done. And you know that if you simply told the neighbor, you can't come over anymore, that would make things worse. That neighbor would tell the whole neighborhood, and it'd just be more and more hassle. And so you're a little lost of what to do. But finally, you have a strategy that you think up, and you try it out. When the neighbor comes over, instead of doing what you typically do, which is to make fresh coffee and serve sweet rolls or cookies and sit down and chat with your neighbor until your neighbor on their own decides to go away, you don't serve cookies. And the next time the neighbor comes over, you say, "My coffee pot works like most coffee pots. Just go ahead and make the coffee yourself, and I'll be in a few minutes." And then when the neighbor comes over again, you say, "Oh gosh, I'm so busy. You know how to make the coffee. Just go ahead and have some coffee, and I might stop by and say a quick hello, and then that'll work out just fine." Well, you know what will happen? The neighbor's not getting any attention. The neighbor will eventually stop coming over because the neighbor doesn't get any satisfaction with you entertaining the neighbor. And this is how we will work with your thoughts. So, what we first do is acknowledge our thoughts without entertaining them. How? We label the thought with some identifier, such as a non-relevant thought, a stray thought, or we could use the word thinking or even the word thought. And once we've identified it and acknowledged it with a label, we go back to whatever we're doing. Whatever we're doing. And it could be thinking of something else, maybe some productive kinds of thinking, or it could be doing some activity. And we do this over and over and over again, and eventually the pesky thoughts quit coming over, just like that neighbor. So the idea is to let any thoughts that come, just let them be momentarily, without emotion. We say, "Oh, thinking, thoughts, non-relevant thought," and back to what we're doing. We'll notice, especially as we do this technique, that thoughts arise and fall whether you're paying attention to them or not. This kind of thinking, this ruminating, worrying thinking, is very different from strategic thinking where you're actually thinking about something with the intention of making a decision. This is very different thinking, this ruminating and worrying. And so we're not saying thinking is bad. We're just saying that we can have productive thinking, strategic thinking, or we can have this kind of thinking that churns itself out all on its own. And that's what we'll have less of with these techniques. So notice the quality of your thoughts also. Have they been judgmental? Have they been embarrassing? Have they been happy? Have they been complaining thoughts, uplifting thoughts, or any other quality, especially regarding other people and how they've been or how you've been around other people? Whatever those thoughts are, just know that they're just thoughts. It really doesn't matter if they're the most uplifting, spiritual, wisdom-filled, insightful thought you ever thought up, or the most horrifying, embarrassing, just devastatingly bad thought that you could have had. It really doesn't make much difference because they're still just thoughts. And you're fine. You're still there in whatever environment you're in, doing what you're doing. And that's good to keep in mind. So thoughts don't trouble you so much. They're just thoughts in the end. So refrain also from judging yourself for thinking of these disempowering thoughts. Like, why do I keep thinking of this stuff? What's wrong with me that I can't have happy thoughts? Just put that aside too, because if you try to then, think about that, it's just more judgmental thoughts. Doesn't really help. Use the same technique. Oh, non-relevant thought. Back to what I'm doing. Remember, your success in having healthy relationships with others and communicating effectively is linked to being available mentally rather than being occupied by disempowering thoughts.